Hi, in this video I'll be showing you a way to secure your phone system from toll fraud. A few fun facts from an NEC document. Hacking is a huge global threat no matter what platform or system you are on. The amount of hacking rises about 15% per year. Globally it costs about $45 billion. It is estimated that 84% of businesses out there are open to hacking. A business will know it's been hacked when it gets its phone bill. On average, the phone bills are about $16K, and in most cases, the business is stuck with the phone bill, as the carrier won't refund it because it was made from an insecure phone system, so they are legitimate calls. Now, I experienced this with a customer that I inherited. The dealer who installed their system did not lock the system down, left it wide open. The poor customer ended up with a bill of $60,000 Australian. Now, the business took the other dealer to court over the bill. Now, I don't know what happened, as I stayed out of it. So smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm, and let's get started. So I'll open up a temporary database that I've made in batch mode, just to not show you guys from a default database and save some time. Credentials are tech and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, as you should all know. Okay, so in this dummy database I've created a SIP trunks of 10 ports, MLT ports put in there 8, and SLT ports I've put in there 4, just as a test. And before we start, just make sure the system's on the latest firmware. And this video also applies to all the systems, so SV8100, 9100 and SL11 and 2100. So one of the first areas we'll go to is memory block 9002. So these are the accounts that exist on the phone system, so people can log in and modify the system. So it's very important not to leave these on default. If I'm not going to use an account, I set it to prohibited user. Very important not to leave them default or open. If a customer does need user level access, just make sure you change the username and the password, like so. So I'm just going to change the username for the installer level. So you put your ID in there, you put whatever you want, and the password you can make it as hard as you want. Just don't make it too easy, like a date or a birth date. So it's a good idea to use the symbols like star and hash because they're allowed. You have up to 8 digits to use for your password. I implore you to use all 8 characters just to make it more secure. If your customer needs access to the phone system, make sure you change the admin level for them. Do not leave it as default, and change the password to something obscure using symbols as well. Star 1213, something like that. They don't use that because it's been broadcast on this video. And make sure you lock down your unused accounts to prohibited user as well. Sorry, I know I did that before, it's just that I cut the video and didn't save it before, so that's why they came back. So once you're happy with all the account changes, don't forget to hit apply. Now we'll move on to the network programming ports. Over on the left, go to 9054. It is a good idea to change these ports, so your web programming port, you can change it from 80, and your PC Pro with the software, you can change that from 8000, and the HTTPS port, you can change that from 443. It is especially important if you plan on having remote access via port forwards to the phone system. I would only recommend using the 905402, the PC Pro port forwarded, and change that from default, of course, just because that's a proprietary software that it needs to get remote access from that, and then the Web Pro port you can use for internal use only. If you must have remote access via Web Pro, then make sure you don't use port 80, make sure you use port 443, but of course make sure you change it to a completely different port before you forward it for HTTPS access. I mean, it's good to have remote access via Web Pro because you can check the voicemail, the InMail if it's got it, and you can upload and download messages. Now if you do need Web Pro access or even PC Pro access via remote, make sure you go to 9028. It's highly recommended by myself and NEC to change each extension's password. As you can see, by default it's set to 1111, sorry. Just make sure you change it to something obscure, not the postcode or date of birth or something easy. You can also use symbols in this area as well, but in here you only have a limit of 4 digits. So once you enter the new password, instead of typing it X amount of times, hit apply and hit copy, and then copy it to everyone else. At least their password's not default, but it is recommended for everyone to have their own different password as well. At least it's not default anymore. For extensions that don't need access to their extension via their computer, via WebPro, you can delete the password, make it blank, and this will prevent them from accessing their account via WebPro, and also prevent hackers from accessing it at all. So the next area we'll go to is 4702 Station Mailbox Options. So in this test database, I only have 12 extensions configured. The phone system by default configures the first 64 ports, automatically assigns them a mailbox. So in this case we'll need to delete all mailboxes from mailbox 13 onwards. So if we skip to 13, make the mailbox type undefined and delete the mailbox extension. Apply, and then on the right hand side click copy. Then you'll get a new little window. Select the 01 and 02 memory blocks and enter mailbox 14-64, and that'll copy it to every mailbox up to 64. Then as you can see, they're all removed. So even if you've got extensions in there that you're using but they don't need a mailbox, it might be a good idea to even delete those ones as well. And also for everyone who is using their mailbox, advise them that it's a good idea to activate their security code. It's also a good idea to see who has system administrator rights. By default it's the first extension, first mailbox extension, extension 101, and if it so happens that extension 101 is not an administrative extension, you can definitely just change that by unticking it and ticking the right person who is an administrator. Good idea to go down to 4713 and make sure all the options that have anything undefined, just change them to hang up. And the option for hash, instead of log on, if you're not going to use that, change it to hang up as well. If you are going to use the log on option, just make sure all your mailboxes have a secure password on them. So in the end, if you need to use the dial action table for options, so if you let's say have 4 options, make sure all the other options that are not used are set to hang up. And lastly, in 4702, make sure you zero out next call routing mailbox. This will prevent unauthorized mailbox access to the manager setup. Then you can use the copy feature and copy it to every other mailbox. And mailbox 2 to 12 is as many mailboxes as we're using. You could do it to 64 if you want. So the next memory block we'll go to is 2104. This is the toll restriction class for extension ports, including the InMail ports. And by default, all ports are in toll class 2. So I usually always block everyone from dialing 19 numbers and 001 numbers. If your extensions need to dial 001 numbers, or international numbers, then make sure you separate the InMail extensions from the other extensions. It's important to make sure that the InMail extensions are always blocked from international dialing, no matter what mode the system's in. It's highly unlikely a user will ever need the InMail box to be able to dial international. If you do need to separate the InMail ports from the extension ports, just from the drop down select the first InMail port, put it in let's say class of service 15, and make sure class of service 15 is always blocked from international calls, and pretty much any other calls really. And just make sure you copy it to all the InMail ports that you've got there. Select the first InMail port, scroll all the way down, hold shift, select the last InMail port and hit OK. Then hit apply. Next step will be to go to 2105 to look at the restriction classes. So once you're in here, you'll notice class 1 is unrestricted on everything, so nothing should be in class 1 on your system. Then we scroll over to class 2, which is what all the extensions are in by default. It's already assigned with 210601, which is the international restriction table. So all you got to do is go into there and fill it out. Under restriction table, under number 8, just put a 1 in there, and then we'll go back in there and modify it after. Now we'll go to class 15, where the InMail ports are, and just make sure they're all blocked as well. Then you hit apply. Now we'll go to 210601, International Call Restrict Table. So in there we'll put 001. So in Australia we use 0011 and 0015, as you may have noticed a lot of hacking calls start with 0015. Over to 210605, Restrict Code Table 1, you put in there 19 to block premium numbers. You can even still put it in 210601, which is what I usually do. I always block 19 numbers, unless the customer wants to dial those premium numbers. The next memory block, 2121, it's a common memory block which I see forgotten on a lot of systems I inherit. So this is the trunk class of service. So when the hacker does a call forward on a extension or in the mailbox, the system will look into this memory block and see that by default it's in class of service 1. And remember, in class of service 1 everything's unlocked, so nothing should be in class of service 1. So we'll move it over to class of service 2 because that's at least blocked for international calls. So now if the hacker does get through and manages to forward your InMail box, they shouldn't get through to international calls. So see what I did there? I just changed the trunk 1 and then copied it to every other trunk. So the next memory block we're going to visit is 1102, extension numbering. It's very important to delete all unused extension numbering. If you have extension numbering that's unused and you have an IP system with IP handsets, it's highly likely that someone could just register an NEC handset straight to your system, especially if you have 103302 enabled, which I'll show you soon. Now you can just sit here and delete them by pressing delete tab and go into the next cell and deleting them and hitting the arrow to the right. Or you can go to grid view, and as you can see there are a lot of extensions to delete manually, and unfortunately you cannot copy and paste. This is one area that I found that you cannot copy and paste. As you can see, I'm trying to copy and paste now. Copy, paste, not even one cell. I'm just trying it with Control C and Control V for paste. So unfortunately the only option is to press down, delete, down, delete, down, delete until you get to the end. Now I know it's very painful, trust me I know, but I'm telling you, if you get hacked it'll be a lot more painful. So you may as well just do it now. So you just hit down, delete until you get to the end. So it's pretty important not to delete the InMail ports, otherwise you won't be able to use your InMail card. Multi-assign, can you? No, you can't extension multi-assign. Okay, so we got to figure out where the InMail ports start. So if we go to 1501, InMail starts at 3898 and it ends at extension 3913. So when we're deleting extension numbers, we just take note to not delete that group, or at least renumber them. I do renumber my InMail groups just to make it nicer in range closer to where the customer is, instead of leaving it in the ugly 3000 range, especially if you're on a 3-digit extension system. And while we're here, don't forget to delete the virtual extensions in 1104 as well, after you do 1102. At least the virtuals are only the first 100 numbered, not the 500 ports that you can have. So if we go back to 1102 and start where we left off, so go back to grid view. Now like I said before, you can go delete tab, delete tab, delete tab here. It just depends on what's easier for you, that's all. I'll give this a fast forward just so we're not sitting here for longer than we have to. great time to smash that like button, guys, for the YouTube algorithm. Really helps me out. I do put a lot of efforts into the videos, and I do appreciate the likes that I get, so thank you everyone. If I have missed something or you find a better way to do it, just comment it below and let us all know. Make sure you don't miss the InMail ports like we spoke before. So we are approaching the extension 7898. So we should be there soon. Alright, so we're there. And remember 7898 to 7913 are the InMail ports. I'm just going to leave them as they are. I'm not going to change them just because this is a test database. And I'll continue on with deleting the extra extensions. Okay, so almost at the end. Now guys, I know this is a painful procedure, but at the end of the day, being hacked is a lot more painful, so it's worth going through, especially if you have IP handsets. Now, I don't know everything obviously, so if you do find an easier way to delete all these extensions, comment it below and share your knowledge around. Alright, so after that painful exercise, we should be left with the extension numbering that we're actually going to use, plus the 16 InMail ports. Now let's say you didn't go through this whole painful exercise, and in 1033 you have that disabled like it is by default, and you had enough licenses to accommodate for third-party extensions and proprietary extensions. So someone with NEC knowledge out there could attempt to register a handset, either a proprietary NEC handset or a third-party handset. If this is disabled, handsets can still register to the system even without a password. So it's very important to delete all those extensions. So now, just to tidy things up, not really a security matter, but I like to delete all the extensions in 1104 just to keep it all tidy. And when we go to the extension list drop down, we don't have to scroll through hundreds of virtual extensions that are not used, which is pretty silly in my point of view. So there's only 99 on here. I will cut to the end just so we don't sit here again. Alright, so now that we've done that, I think if we go back to 1033, I don't think I actually ticked that box, so let's go back there and just double check. No, I didn't. Okay, so we've got to tick that box just to make sure extensions that are trying to register need a password. Now, if you're playing with remote handsets, remote IP handsets, if we go to 1046.01, so by default that's set to plug and play, which means the handsets will automatically register as soon as they're plugged in. But if you have all the extensions deleted like we just went through, then that should be pretty safe, because even though the handset will talk to the system, it'll say full port or something like that. Otherwise you can set it to manual, which then you'll need a extension index for each extension that's going to be registered to the system. So, and that's in 1505, you assign it to each extension. 1505. I don't have any IP extensions configured. Alright, so if we go back to 1002, sorry, it's 1102, not 1002, to create our dummy extension. So if I just pop 113 into the next available extension port, after you've created the extension, go up the top to filter options and select IP phone list, and then tick 113. That's your new IP extension in batch mode. So go back to 1505 and we can now see the IP extension details. Sorry about that, I forgot to add that in before I started. If extension 113 is going to be a third-party extension, make sure 1505.16 is set to a complex password. You don't want to make it easy for someone to guess. And if extension 113 is going to be a proprietary NEC handset, go to 27 and assign a personal ID index to it to make it a lot more secure. But having no extension numbers free in the extension numbering plan is pretty secure anyway, because if someone does assign a handset to the phone system, it'll come up with full ports. But just as an extra precaution, it's a good idea to add an index to each extension. So 8422, index 1, you assign an ID and a password, and you tick user ID required. So in this case, if there's a spare extension number, if it has no index assigned to it, then a handset won't be able to be registered against it. Now let's say you have a phone in a public area and you'd like it to be locked down in mode 2 or in night mode or in any other mode. So first we'll go to 1501 and label an extension in front desk or something. Yep, drop down and we'll pick extension 107 for example. We'll name it front desk, and let's say this is in a public area and we want it to be locked down at night time, not to be able to make any calls at all. So the next step will be to go to 2104 to put the extension 107 in a different class. So we'll put extension 107 in class 3, just the next class over. So we pick 107 from the drop down, put it in class 3. So in mode 1 we want it to be able to dial out. In mode 2 is then when we want to block it, and any other mode just in case it gets put into another mode. So I'm just clicking tab 3, tab 3, tab 3, hit apply, and then the next block will be 2105, and then we go to toll restriction class 3 and just make sure they're all set to the correct parameters. So restriction table 1, hit apply. Actually we need to make that restriction table 2, sorry, because we need to enter more restrictions. So the next one is 210607, so restriction code table 2, and in here we enter all the digits that those extensions are not allowed to dial. So it's pretty much every digit we don't want them to dial at night time or in any other mode besides mode 1. So you just fill out the numbers like so. Okay, that's the end. And I guess 19 would be covered with the digit 1 there, so you don't really have to have 19 there. Alright, so the next bit, 210606, restriction permit table. It's very important to put your country's emergency number in there, 000, in this case in Australia, just to be sure that the phone can make 000 calls in table 2. So you may want to have a override password in 2107 set for particular extensions. This is just in case one of the bosses or managers wants to make a phone call from the public phone in night mode or any other mode besides mode 1. Another memory block not to forget if you're using KCCIS for site hop off is 2511. So this allows KCCIS trunks to gain access to a trunk by dialing 2 via the VRS. If you want to lock down the KCCIS trunks in different modes, then this is where you do it. So this applies if you've got 2014-02 enabled. So if you don't have that box ticked, then that's irrelevant anyway. If you've made it this far, you may as well just subscribe. Another thing to change, if you go to 8420, it's a good idea to change the default third-party extension port from 5070 to another random third-party port that you may use. It just prevents hackers from trying to guess what extension numbers the third-party extensions are configured on. Well, it doesn't prevent them from guessing, it makes it harder for them, you know what I mean. Don't forget to check out my other videos with tips and tricks. Leave a comment below with something that you've picked up from this video that you hadn't learnt yet, or leave a comment below with something that I've done that you could do easier, or something that I've missed. Please like, subscribe and share. I know it was a long video, I've tried to make it as short as I could, but I had to fit in all this information. Hopefully it was all helpful. Thank you.